We will call this budget workshop to order here. And Christina, I believe the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. Copies of the budget workbook with variance explanations were provided to the board at the September 3rd regular board meeting. After this budget overview, we will open the floor for discussion of the budget. Additional times to cover the budget include a workshop prior to the board meeting on the 17th, followed by the evening of the 19th. Staff will provide any outstanding responses from the workshops at the pre-agenda meeting on the 24th, and the 2025 budget will be included on the agenda for October 1st.
So just as a reminder to the directors, Christina's remarks, she stated that she was going to give you an overview, and then she would open the floor for questions. So just to be sure and make your notes and have your questions ready at the end, so if you have any, she can answer those for you. With that, Christina?
Before reviewing the 2025 budget, we'll take a historical look at the city's finances. We'll summarize the 2024 budget, and we'll provide an overview of the 2025 budget. Here we show the trend lines over the last 10 years for revenues, expenses, assets, and fund balance. Except for 2015, revenues have been greater than expenses. In 2015, the new library and other building renovations increased expenses. Generally speaking, large infrastructure projects funded from reserves cause expenses to exceed revenues. In 2019, several large infrastructure projects pulling from reserves lowered the fund balance slightly. These included the completion of the library park, the new radio system for public safety, and the Fire Station 2 remodel. In 2020 and 2021, the steep increase in fund balance included the repayment of the loan from utilities for Fire Station 2 and the accumulation of 5/8 funds for the water treatment plant loan. Overall, the trend for assets and fund balance is increasing until 2024. 2024 projects revenues to decline but exceed expenditures by about $625,000. Fund balance is expected to decline by $1.8 million, while investments in assets increases by $2.4 million based on current year expenditures, excluding inventory increases. So far, 2024 has been a reasonable fiscal year with the exception of the continued supply chain issues. We project that we'll end the year within budget as revised. Through July, city sales tax receipts are down 0.1% relative to the budget and up 3.9% compared to the previous year. County sales tax is down by 3% relative to the budget and up 3% over prior year. Courts office remodel was completed this year. The electric department projects for 2024 are mainly general line extensions, south feeder loop upgrades, the warehouse, and AMI meter replacements. Water projects include water main extensions, AMI meter replacements, and the long-range water plan, which will be started this year. Wastewater projects include the Headworks project, lift station repairs, and the replacement of the sewer line on Maxwell Street, which was completed this year. Year-end projections assume that projects budgeted will be completed, revenues will be maintained through the end of the year, and inventory will increase $6 million from prior year. We project that we'll end the year with $28 million in legally unrestricted cash. The city's policy for 90 days of operating cash requires a minimum of $26.2 million in 2024, and general fund liabilities to be paid with unrestricted funds related to retirements and benefits exceeded $16 million. This includes LOPFI, OPEB, or other post-employment benefits, accrued sick and vacation payouts. The Street Now account is projected to have just under $5.9 million at year's end. Our restricted cash account is projected to end the year with just over $7.6 billion. Restricted cash includes the public safety portion of sales tax for $2 million, the 3/8 sales tax for $3.8 million, depreciation funds for $900,000, and the 5/8 sales tax for another $900,000. These totals do not include accounts receivable, inventory, net accounts payable, or long-term debt, and is considered to be cash on hand. For 2025, budget priorities included a 4% raise for non-uniformed staff. Uniformed staff will receive step raises. Initially, 25 new employees were applied for as part of the budget requests, resulting in 5 full-time employees added from prior year budget. One of those was a part-time to full-time transition, and another was for the infrastructure crew, which will be reimbursed by the departments that use their services. $19 million in capital requests were reduced to $13.1 million for the proposed budget. Revenues were revisited based on July actual numbers, and the submitted budget is currently positive by $1 million. As proposed, the budget includes 5 additional full-time personnel and an increase of 4% for employees as an across-the-board raise. And here is the allocation of the new positions and related salaries and wages. Sure.
Operations special, okay.
Based on the latest information from GRDA, our charge per kilowatt hour is expected to increase by 2.5% in October of this year and again in October of next year. However, the power cost adjustment has decreased over 2024, and we are budgeting the same lower average power cost for 2025. No utility rate increases for usage are proposed for 2025. This is the 4th year with no usage rate increase. Various other fees will increase as outlined in code. However, a rate study is budgeted for 2025. It's required by law for water, but will cover all utilities. Regarding city sales tax, we've maintained our conservative approach to budgeting, and current receipts are up 4%, and staff is only budgeting a 3% increase over current year projections. County sales tax is budgeted with a 3% increase from the current year. Revenue for the county sales tax revenue is a per capita share of county collections. State turnback funds are budgeted based on trend with consideration of the budget provided by the state. Projects to be funded out of reserves include the following. The general fund budget proposes $191,000 from the Quality of Life Fund for upgrades to the Family Aquatic Center. Utility reserves have been budgeted for the needed transformer approved by the board in 2024, and a sewer master plan from I&I funds set aside in 2015. These funds are designated for use by water and wastewater. Streets has budgeted $3.3 million for 4 street rebuilds, with $2.1 million from reserves and the remainder from revenues collected in 2025. The 2025 budget includes the following amounts for significant capital projects costing greater than $200,000. This is not all of the capital projects listed in the individual budgets. There is no capital expense budgeted for administration, court, animal shelter, infrastructure, or human resources for 2025. Police purchases are mainly vehicles, and other significant capital projects or purchases budgeted include a rescue truck for the fire department. The 2025 budget includes the following amounts for significant capital projects for proprietary funds. Electric general line extensions of $1.5 million. The board approved substation transformer ordered in 2024 for $1.3 million. Water general line extensions for $250,000. Sewer master plan for $250,000. And a wastewater general line extension of $210,000. The 2025 budget includes the following significant capital projects for streets. $210,000 is budgeted for a triaxle dump truck. $300,000 is budgeted for sidewalks. Contract price is budgeted for rebuilds related to Mockingbird, Meadowlark, Whippoorwill, and Hummingbird, and Kenwood Street. The Elm Street rebuild will be done in-house. Proposed changes in existing positions include the following. If approved, several departments would like to reclassify positions. The grant coordinator in finance would become a grant writer in the administration department. The deputy fire chief, I should say one deputy fire chief, would be moved to a training division chief. The EMS division chief to an EMS training captain. The recreation technician to an athletic coordinator. A mechanic in maintenance or fleet services to a shop foreman. An accounting clerk to staff accountant. And also, there's a Scrivener's error on page 57 of the budget book. The reclass from prior year was not updated. There are 13 linemen and no facilities coordinator for 2024. The serviceman is being requested to be reclassed as a lineman for 2025. And in sanitation, there is a driver to be reclassed as a commercial lead. Healthcare costs are increasing by 7%, and the budget proposes that the city and employees share the increase proportionately. This would result in family coverage increasing by $4.82 per paycheck. That would be the largest increase in premium for staff. The city will continue to match an employee's HSA contribution dollar for dollar up to a max of $960 per year. And the wellness program will continue in 2025. Participants will receive $750 added to their HSA or health savings account. As this budget summary shows, we are projecting $81 million in revenue from taxes, utilities, and charges for service, plus an additional $14.6 million from reserve funds, for a total revenue amount of $95.6 million. We're budgeting for $94.6 million in expenses. The $1 million in additional revenue is proposed to be added to the city's fund balance. This amount will be split between the general, utility, and street reserves at approximately $452,000, $540,000, and $33,000 respectively. General fund revenues are expected to be up $500,000, which includes property and sales tax revenue of $315,000. a decrease in charges to other departments of $352,000 for engineering fees, and in increased transfers to the general fund from utilities. Operating expenses have increased $1.4 million, mainly for personnel costs related to the 4% raise, step increases, and professional and engineering fees. So I'm going to stop here and just note that engineering is moving to streets, and so the money that we were collecting from the utilities into the general fund for engineering will now be going into streets. And those wages and expenses will be moving over to streets as well. Capital decreased $4.3 million, mainly because in the 2024 budget, there was a bay at Fire Station 1 for $2.8 million, a software upgrade for $1 million, and a police training center for $500,000. Enterprise fund revenue increased by $1.4 million. This is mainly due to utility charges based on trend plus 2.2%, which is a historical average. Wastewater revenue was budgeted low in prior year. Cost of goods sold is down $100,000, mainly due to decreased energy costs, which were partly offset by increased fuel purchases for the airport. Operating expenses are up $3.3 million, mainly due to depreciation of $1 million. Debt payments increased by $548,000, and personnel costs are up over $400,000. Capital expenses decreased. Prior year included $1 million for the Maxwell Street sewer line replacement and over $400,000 for the Headworks project. Additionally, there was over $600,000 for 2 balers that were purchased. The special revenue fund for streets is up by $100,000, mainly due to engineering fees from other departments. Operating expenses increased $500,000 from prior year. Mainly this is due again to the engineers' salaries and wages. Capital expenses are down by $3.5 million, and this decrease is mainly due to Lake Francis rebuild, which occurred in 2024 for $2.1 million, in addition to the 4 budgeted drainage projects costing just over $1.4 million. So this slide shows the projected ending cash balance for certain accounts. Overall, unrestricted cash will decrease by approximately $1.1 million. In total, the restricted funds will decrease by $3.2 million, which again includes the street now, the 5/8, the 3/8, public safety and depreciation funds. And as a side note, the 2024 ending balance for unrestricted cash assumes receipt of all outstanding inventory purchases for transformers and related hardware. Operating revenues are increasing 2.6% or $1.9 million. Operating expenses are increasing by 0%. However, for operating expenses, we'll look at each category. Personnel includes salaries and benefits, and that is increasing by 8.2%. This includes the 4% raise, step raises, 5 new full-time positions, and increased health care costs of 7%. Operations is increasing by 5.3%. This increase includes many incremental increases, but the largest ones are $1 million for depreciation, $194,000 for landfill fees, and $175,000 for utilities in wastewater due to the reuse system no longer functioning. Capital is decreasing by 40.1%. Prior year's general fund was up $3.8 million with the additional bay at Fire Station 1, and integrated software being the main projects. Sanitation included 3 large pieces of equipment in the prior year for just over $688,000. And when I say in the prior, I mean in the budget. There's a 5.8% increase in transfers. Recall that transfers to the general fund are a percent of net sales in each utility and are based on policy. Debt is increasing 14%. $335,000 of this is due to the leasing of equipment during 2024 for sanitation. The remainder is the increase in sales tax being applied to the water treatment plant debt. Grants will vary significantly from year to year, and we are no longer budgeting grant matches. Non-cash expenses include bad debt and depreciation. Cash in versus cash out compared to 2024. Revenue increased by $1.9 million, and cash expenses increased by $1 million. So the floor is now open for question.
Alan, you have anything you'd like to say before?
No, again, any questions you may have, we'll address tonight. We have some folks out, and whatever we can't get answered tonight, we will get it answered during the week or our next meeting. When Christina's talking about 5 new employees, it was very scrutinized, just to let you know. Christina, I can't remember if it was 25 or 20.
25.
It was 25 employees were requested, and we're looking at the budget, we picked, we're meeting with staff, we picked the 5 most of the priorities. They're all priorities, but these are the ones that we really needed at this time. When you're looking at the police officer, I think back in 2021, the board and the administrator at that time, what our goal was to hire 10 officers over a 5-year period. Well, we're at that time, the officers on that list will be that 10th. Plus we've added a couple SROs with the school 50/50. Again, when you hear 5, it's 5, but really it's 3 because one, we're picking up the salary. We have an airport that we have 1 full-time person in James, and we have a part-time person. I think it's just a necessity that we take that part-time person and make it into a full-time position where we have someone out there because our airport's picking up, we're having more flights, there's a lot more traffic. So, and then the other one, as Christina said, will be reimbursed from wherever the streets or the utilities. So again, open it up for questions, and if you don't have your questions tonight, as we go through this, please email myself or Christina, or again, if you email Christina, just CC me, and we'll try to get you answers from staff.
Thank you, sir. So board, comments? Yes, Mark?
I don't like slides that I don't have copies of, so would you get me copies of all those slides, please?
Can do that.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Mindy?
on one of the slides, you had the overall revenue and the overall expense for 2025, and the revenue matched what's in our packet, but the expense didn't match, and I'm sure there's a reason for that, but would you?
Depreciation, it's non-cash. You're
Okay.
not, yeah, I excluded non-cash expenses.
Okay.
So please, I know how depreciation works in the business world. Since the city doesn't pay taxes, can you explain non-cash depreciation in a city world?
Basically, what you're doing is you're booking the estimated loss in value of the assets that you have over time. So if your vehicle's going to last you 10 years, you take the cost of that and you
I get that.
deplete it over 10 years.
So when you say depreciation funds on this, I don't know what page it is, I don't see a number, general fund, second or third page,
Mm-hmm.
you say depreciation funds. Tell me
Oh,
what
okay.
depreciation funds
That is the terminology that this city uses. You probably know it as repair and replacement funds that are set aside by the bond. We have bond issues.
Bonds only?
We have bond issues that are required to replace utility assets. There's 3% of net revenue.
But it's bond only. That money is bonds only money.
That
And any other
money-
time you mention depreciation, it is just an expense you apply for something we've already
Yes,
paid for.
that's correct.
It's not real money at all.
The
But we're getting-
depreciation,
But it's in the budget.
the bond depreciation
No,
is.
I get that. What,
Okay.
the other?
The other is just, it will show up in our financial statements, so we put it in the budget so that you actually see what the actual expense is going to look like, because every month we send you those financial statements.
Right, but when you say our expenses are up however much, and just this one line of depreciation is $1 million, or one of them was,
Correct,
but it's not real money,
correct.
so it's not an expense.
Well,
It's money we've
it
already
is an
spent.
expense I'm required to book,
It's money we've already spent.
correct.
Christina,
Right.
talking about depreciation, at one point in time, we did a little different, and then our auditors required us to change how we book that, or we made a change.
Yes, that actually happened in 2003. They changed the entire accounting rules so that now everything has to be done basically at a fund basis, and then also on a proprietary fund basis, which is different, more like a business.
Except a business gets to depreciate, uses that for taxes, and the city doesn't pay tax.
I understand that.
Not telling, I'm just
Yeah.
stating.
Anyone else? Questions? Betsy?
How many, you mentioned 5 new employees in the budget. How many part-time?
There were 0 part-time positions added to the budget.
There will still be part-time in the budget. The police department has upped their part-time money to add additional
Hours? yeah.
hours, and I can't remember the fire department.
No.
So I think that's the only one where we have part-time. Of course, we'll have part-time employees at the community development. So we still have community development, it's nothing new.
Okay. So how many were added last year?
Full-time employees, 20.
And earlier you said the non-uniform was 4%, was what's recommended. What was it last year?
7%.
What's that based on? Because I know like COLA last year was 3.2. It's
So-
expected to be 2.5 something this year.
Correct. We did it as a COLA raise in order to adjust the wage ranges. But what that was based on was when we did our original, when we had Johansson come in and do our salary ranges for us, when we implemented that, he said that we were going to have to implement, well, we didn't, but he said what we were supposed to do was we were supposed to add 2.3% plus what everybody else did in the corridor for the previous year, and that average was 7%. There were some that did quite a bit higher, but like Rogers and the county and Bentonville, they were right around that 7% range. And we didn't feel we could raise that plus the 2.32%. We didn't think we could swing that.
Yeah,
So-
Mr.
so-
Johansson was here. One of the things that we were looking at, once we did the step increases and everything for the city that the board voted on, I think I remember where Mr. Johansson and I were speaking, and also with you, that said we would have to do at least a minimum of 11% just to keep up. Last year, we couldn't do 11%, so we did 7. So to get to that 11 this year, we did 4. The big problem we were having, we were losing employees just every day. Like Christina said, we did a COLA raise just to get that minimum, and I can't remember, Christina, it was like 1680.
It went up to 1685.
So then we
for our-
jumped to 1785.
No, it went up, we pushed it from, I think, right around $15 up to
1685,
1685.
that is correct. So we were at $15 and some change, and we bumped that to 1685. So again, a part of that was the COLA. And then, again, we were about to lose employees at Public Works and sanitation. So I even had to go in and do some mid-year just to get us competitive with money that we had in the budget. And again, since we did this, we haven't had the attrition that we have, well, we're not losing as many people as we were.
But your
because we're
1685 is the average, right? That's the average hourly, 1685.
That
No,
is their
that's our,
minimum.
that's our starting pay for people that are weed eating and
We don't have
mowing
people,
lawns
we don't have
and-
people making less than 1685 then?
Our part-time people make our part-time people make less than 1685, and
Firemen.
fire department, but they're based on a different number of hours per year.
I can
The
assure
best
you.
off sleeping.
So what you
hang
were
on.
saying about the 11%, 7 last year for this year, and then you went into the 1685, you're actually talking about two different categories of employees. The non-uniform were the 7%, and then the 4%. But that hasn't been the issue where there've been a lot of people leaving, was it?
At the
And-
police
and-
department, fire department?
No, I know that they're differently. I'm talking about your basic non-uniform employees. Hasn't the issue been more in the hourly, the ones where you've done step raises?
Right, even at 1685, Steve and other directors still have hard time hiring people at that rate.
And I understand that. I guess my point was the people leaving hasn't been so much the ones who are getting the 7% and the 4%. It's the ones that are pretty low at the step raises. That's where the problem's been, correct?
Or lower paid folks, yes. I think I'm reading you
The
correct.
uniform, the police and the fire, we don't have attrition like we
Right,
had,
right.
right?
I'm
So-
not-
So the 4 and the 7, the 4 and the 7% that applied to the non-uniform employees, that is what has really allowed us to be able to, because we were competing with McDonald's to hire somebody to mow. I mean, so that has given us a
So
little
are
bit of
we
an advantage.
only giving that to the lower income? The department heads aren't getting the 7%?
No, when we implemented the pay ranges, we very specifically gave more money to the lower end and less money to the upper end. But when you do a 7% COLA, it was just done across the board.
7% COLA last year,
Correct.
and that was every single employee, 7% raise.
Yes.
Why call it COLA? COLA stands for cost of living adjustment. Cost of living last year was not 7%.
So and this is just based on my understanding, and it could be a difference in your understanding of verbiage. My understanding is that when you give an across-the-board raise, you're giving a raise, right? But when you implement a COLA, you shift the wage band. So now you're not hiring people in at 15 whatever an hour, you're hiring them in at 1685. You're moving the whole range. We're not asking to move the range again, we're just asking to give a 4% raise.
What does that have to do with calling the raise COLA? COLA means it has to do with the federal government signifier for cost of living.
And when Johansson Group did the study, do you remember him talking about the cost of living increases? Our pay has not kept up with the cost of living increases within our area.
We haven't-
And that's why he called it a COLA.
Yeah, we haven't been giving
Per-
raises that are, let's put it this way. The previous city administrator would sometimes give us a 2% raise when inflation and the cost of living increased more than that. So right now, through that 7% COLA, we were just playing catch-up.
Christina calls us a COLA, so the people that are making 1685 this year, they'll get a 4%. So let's just say they go to 1730. That doesn't change that starting pay. What that'll do, when we hire the next person, they will still come in at 1685. If we did that, our understanding of the COLA, if we did another COLA this year, it would drive that 1685 up to our starting pay.
But Alan, why
Which
can't we
I'm
just
just making
raise
up
that
numbers.
number up?
Sir?
Why can't we just make that 19, or I'm not suggesting I know how much it should be.
Right.
But why can't we just raise that minimum up? Because I feel like that the lower-end employees are vastly underpaid, and some of the higher-end ones are in good spots, let's say that. I'm not trying to lower anybody's pay, but if we're having a problem with people leaving at the lower end, and I believe we are, why don't we just raise our minimum to 19?
Hourly.
Where do you draw the line on who that is and who that isn't?
Everybody gets 19 an hour.
Didn't you say that attrition has lowered this year? Attrition has lowered this year. We haven't lost as many since we put the new.
Misty, what do you think? You're,
I mean, I agree, Lisa. Where do you draw the line? But also raising employees to 19, Christina, what does that do to the budget? Like, that,
It's not feasible in the current year budget. I
Yeah.
mean,
But it is if we don't give 7% or 4% or whatever it is. I mean, we have lots of options. That's what we do on this board. So I'm just wondering, why did we decide to automatically do these attrition raises and automatically do these 4%? And this board is not specifically voting and talking about that.
they did vote on it
When?
last year.
The
We-
7%
we
was
voted on
for the current
7%
year.
Last year.
Yeah.
In the budget or in
Yeah, in the
specific?
budget.
Everybody
Yeah.
got a 7% raise during 2024 when we voted on it in '23, at the end of '23 for '24. So now we're just being asked to vote for a 4% raise, right?
so employees will get
Correct.
11, if this is approved, the employees will see 11% increase in 2 years.
So what is the compensation plan that is also voted the same night?
That's the wage ranges for each position.
And this is all according to Johansson?
Yes.
I assure you, when we had Johansson come in and we were told that we were out of whack on our pay, I just remember thinking, well, first of all, we're not on the quota. We have a completely different labor market. And I thought it was a one-year change to get us in line. And then the next year came and we had to vote because it's Johansson. Is that going to come up again this year?
Nope.
Compensation plan not going to be the same night as the budget?
Nope.
Well, it will be the
Well, it
same
will
night
be,
as the budget,
but-
but the numbers will not be
Yeah,
changing.
the numbers are not changing. The wage ranges are not changing.
And that was what the compensation plan
Yes.
was last year?
Yes.
It was the minimum and maximum for the job title?
Correct.
Okay. The question I got is, when you have uniforms and non-uniforms, are you mainly just talking about fire and police? Or are there
Yes.
other uniforms?
Fire and police.
Okay. Is there other uniforms that are being planned for other departments?
No.
Okay, well, now tell us, what is the step raise? Because we're saying there's COLA, but there's also the step raise.
So the step raise is only for police and fire, and it is part of the compensation plan that was approved. They
That's what I
get automatic raises every year.
I just wanted to confirm that that's
Okay.
what it was. I thought that because I remember us discussing it, that it was only for those two departments, but I didn't want to assume anything either.
Right, so this year, and again, if you have your compensation, I think she emailed it today. She emailed that today. The step plan should be on the back of your compensation. One of the things with, the step plan was very important, especially, when I was there. I had dispatchers when I started in 2020, you're making $13.39 an hour, and police officers are making $15.49. So we've been in increments the last few years. Now our starting pay, we're competitive. Now we have police officers that are $21 an hour. Still not where chief wants to be, but we got to do a slow process. But just to come in and say, all right, you got 200 employees and we're going to bump everything to $19 an hour. Now we're getting into possibly millions of dollars to do that significant of an increase. So again, when we get in here and we look at this at a 7% raise and then a 4% raise, we're looking at 11, which is pretty significant because I've got to make sure the employees know, even with insurance increases this year, because they hear 7% increase and they're like, well, I'm only getting a 4, but my insurance is going up, 7%, I'm losing money. And I've told department heads, no, explain to your employees, insurance, they're only going to see about $125, somewhere in there. I'm not accurate, but somewhere in there, if you do $4.82 times 26 paychecks, I'm looking at $125.32. So even though, but across the board, that's expensive to the city. So we've been doing smaller increments, try to get us in line, and it's worked really well for us so far.
And that was my question. It sounds like after the 7% increase, you said that we have lost fewer people over the last year. So
That is
we're
correct.
on track at the rate that we settled on last year. So this year is just going to be an extra 4%. But it sounds like people are happy with what they're making. Now, I mean, everybody would always want to make more money.
Right.
Yeah, everybody.
And that step doesn't include command staff.
And thank you for saying that, and what that does is because lost my thought for a second there. When you look at the step plan, that doesn't include chief or the deputy chief or the fire chief, anybody that's salaried, they're not included. And then last year, just to be transparent with you, when we did a 7% across the board, we'd already had a step in place. So police and fire actually got a bigger pop than 7%. Some got a 10 to 11%. So I've already let both chiefs know that they would not be included in this year's 4% raise because they're already going to get
Alan,
anywhere from a
the
3 to.
reason I'm questioning is it's been a while since I've been on this board, but the salaries have increased like $30 million in that time I was gone. And that just seems exorbitant, and I'm trying to drill down and figure out. I didn't realize we hired 20 people last year. That would be a significant part of it. But I'm just trying to drill down the policies and why and who declares it. Like Judy said, some things have changed, and I get that. But we used to very specifically talk about all of these little details, cost of living and every little detail we talked about extensively in the budget meetings, and they went on for 7 or 8, 10 days because we talked about all these little details. And I'm just trying to drill down and get my head caught up. I'm not attacking employees. Please don't think that I'm just wondering why is it we do it like this? Why aren't we bumping the salaries if that's where the problem is?
And understand too, because things have changed a little bit, and again, I tell you, I want questions, that doesn't bother me. But we're also, for Lofty, for fire department, police department, those expenses have really increased. I think when I got here, we were paying 21%. Now the city's having to pay 24% of their total salary to Lofty. So that's a huge number. Same way when the board voted for employees, where our employees, I think Ms. Lisa, 7% at that time, 6. Now we do 12. For every employee gets 12%.
12% retirement?
Yes.
Yes. Let me explain. Let me give it a little history, and that's why I was wanting to, we do compete with the corridor. I used to work here at the city of Siloam Springs. I got a phone call one day, and I'm like, why don't you come work for the city of Fayetteville? I'll pay you double. They started me at double. The first month I was there, they gave me a 15% increase. My retirement, no matter what position, because here, the way it was, if you were the city administrator or you were a director, you got 12%. But all the other employees, I left here paying 6%, and I had to contribute 3%. Over there, I contributed 3% and got 12% from that city. When I left that city, mine was 3 times what it was here in Siloam. I felt like I was less of an employee, and that I wasn't any less of an employee just because the city administrator made 12% and I was just as valuable. It takes every position to make the city work. And so I thought that was a value to me, and I lost that value. And so I fought for that, for the employees to get a 12% retirement because of that and what it did to me in my future. And we do compete with the corridor, and we do have to keep up with what the corridor does, because it was easy for me to drive for 10 years over to Fayetteville. And I know the gases went up, but I would still, if I got a double salary and then I got a 15% raise the month after I would go over to the corridor. And so we have to compete with the wages over there.
I really didn't attack anything. I'm trying to figure out.
I just wanted to
why.
explain the history of it, because it wasn't insulting as an employee to work here, and I get less of retirement when I put just as much effort into my job. Sometimes I was here 60, 70 hours a week when I worked in IT, when nobody else was in the building, but David Cameron and I were the only two in the building sometimes all weekend. And so, but I didn't feel as valued. Went over there and I felt very valued. And it was because of the salary and because they valued enough to invest in my future, my retirement.
Keep in mind, when I hear 20 employees, a couple of those positions haven't been filled. So again, it's been more like 18. And again, it's areas of need. Again, and when you look at employees that are, even the ones that are making $25 an hour, $16.85, with the day's economy, that's like $16.85 is like making 12. I mean, they're feeling it. And what I've given the directors, I've given them the leeway, the latitude, that if they find somewhere where experience, where before they just, even if they had experience, Steve started his people in at $15 or $16.85. And if it's in his budget, I let him bring somebody in at $18 an hour. If he can hit the ground working and doesn't have to be trained, he shouldn't start out. It's just like the Chief's got the latitude that before recruiting really hurt us, because we've hired people from all over the country in the last few years. The problem we were having, if I brought somebody in with 10 years experience, said, hey, you're going to be a PO1 and you're going to start at $18 an hour. Now he has a latitude, he can put that person all the way to a step 7, which puts us competitive. And now people are calling going, how did you recruit these people? Because we're competitive.
Let's stay with that example. Let's say there is a decision that someone should be added, that we need to add an employee. Could you tell me the criteria that is used for that?
To add in a new employee has to come to the board for approval.
No. But you've already decided, yeah, that's a good idea, or you wouldn't bring it to us. So could you tell me the criteria you're using? Okay, so in my mind, for example, I don't know what the population is, 17,500 or whatever it is, and we grew 2,500 people, and 2,500 people needs another officer. I'm just throwing a made-up version of a criteria. So what criteria is used to decide, yes, we need to add another employee?
Are you talking about the police department or any employee? Let's use, for example, Kevin.
A new one, not a position open, but we're adding a position.
Right, it's a position that I want to add this year. One of the biggest things I hear from board, it's not a bad thing. We've got to get better on these building inspections. Too many things are sliding through. How did you guys let that? But Kevin, how many inspections did we do last year? I know I had you pull some numbers for me.
So this year, through the end of July, we had 4,300 inspections, and we have one building inspector. The only way that we're able to do that currently is because our building official overlaps and does some of those inspections as well, but that's why we're requesting a second building inspector, because that's certainly justified with the number of inspections that we're seeing. And those are 4,300 visits, so some of those visits are multiple inspections at the same time while they're on site.
Kevin, that's just one inspection, right? It's not going back multiple times. It's 4,000, over 4,000. And sometimes we need to go back multiple times, because I know Director Blair's had me go out some projects, and we've looked it over, and it's something that needs to be inspected more than once. We need to be out there weekly. So to me, that criteria, that's very, very important that I get another, because what's happening too, I pulled from Cliff. Cliff saved us a lot of money by doing a lot of in-house projects. Well, He's a building inspector. I'm having to pull him off a job. I'm having to pull Randall off a job. I'm having to pull Kevin off a job. And we're having to go out and help with building inspectors because that building inspector takes vacation. He calls in sick. He's on holidays. So I take that criteria and say, okay, this is really what I need. Take Chief Miller, for example. His burglaries are up, his drugs are up, his narcotics. When I got here, we didn't have a narcotics team. We weren't working dope at all. How are we doing this? What am I pulling for patrol? When I got here, I had 4 patrolmen on the street. Well, when one was sick, there's Saturdays and Sundays and Friday nights, we had 2 people working, the entire city. So now he has around 6. So we got to find the needs because everybody in the room can tell you, because I don't tell you how Steve's been doing. You know, Steve's, how many road guys you got on your, just doing streets? 12? 13. 13. So when we do when we do a rebuild, I pull his entire team off. And from that 13, I have other things come up. Now I got to pull them off. So we just got to find where those needs are, where our growth is at.
So
I-
I need you to, I'm new. I need more of you, one-on-one time with you to hear this before it comes up.
Okay.
Or present it to the whole board if that's what they want, so.
I'm going to piggyback on what you were saying in your explanation of you want to add a building inspector. Well, last year you added a new position of a construction inspector. So what's the difference?
And there's a senior building inspector. So to hear that we're adding, that we only have one building inspector, that can't be right. We have a senior building inspector.
And we added the construction inspector last year.
Yeah, so those are separate positions. So the senior building inspector is our building official, Randall. He's the manager of that department. So he splits his time between managing Cliff and Ryan, who's our building inspector, as well as code enforcement, which, of course, they only have one full-time officer right now. So he manages that department and then tag teams inspections whenever it's needed. Then the construction inspector that we have, that's for on the engineering end, so streets and infrastructure as it goes in. That's a separate job role outside the building versus the building inspectors within the building.
I just got confused because you said we've only got one building inspector, and it's like, it doesn't look like it in the list.
Sorry, we have, to clarify, we have one full-time building inspector.
Well, even though he's the senior and manages it, it says senior building inspector is what my point was.
And then as long as,
We've had these same conversations when they asked me for the position, so I get it.
as long as we're on community development, there's also the addition of a planner too.
Yes, so the change for that is to get rid of the planning technician position and make that planner 1. And then move the current planner 1 to planner 2.
And just to be honest with the board, Wade Baker will be retiring in December. He's made a decision that he's going to be going to something else. I'm very happy for him. He's going to stay to December. Staff has decided that that would be better used for a planner, because I know on top of your head you won't have numbers, but 2 planners, how many projects did they work on last year?
I don't have those numbers, unfortunately.
It's a very, very high number.
And it varies month to month.
And it gives
Some
them
months
that-
we'll get 12 projects, some will get 3 or 4, just as construction cycles and things like that progress.
So we're doing a new job description for a planner 2 that gives Megan a place to grow. So you have planner 2, then you have your senior planner, and then we're hoping to fill that technician role with a planner. And they'll be doing dual roles, and then the administrative ladies will be taking on some more work.
So then, and also part-time, there's another position added under specialist code compliance. So when I look at 2023 versus 2025, that's 5 new employees in this department. And if I want to switch, because you talked about, we're growing and blah, blah, blah. I only had access over the weekend at home since we just got all this to 2022. I look at the electric department, and I haven't seen any new employees in the past 4 years, but yet they do all this for all the development, all the growth we're getting. And I don't know if Phil, I can't see on the, I don't know if Phil is still, oh, there he is. Did the electric department not ask for any new employees? Because now community development, if we pass all this, is going to have 5, including the part-time, 5 new employees since 2023, and electric doesn't have any. That seems odd to me. I don't understand why one department has 5 new employees and electric, I don't know, maybe you don't need new people despite all the developments in the electric you're running, except for I did see there's an apprentice lineman.
Last year, we had 2 new employees added, but at the same time, we had departments, warehouse went underneath Christina's. So we had 2 employees come on, and we lost 2 employees, and that's why it looks static.
Okay.
Okay, but, we're doing our best, we get the job done, so.
And y'all do an amazing job with getting
We
the
try.
job done. So,
Talking about
So
community.
you didn't request any new employees for this year?
Well, you always want more, but we just, do the best we can. But yeah, we did request another one, but just didn't work out, so we'll,
We changed that to a line. You wanted to change,
yeah, we changed the position title. We had a serviceman
To a lineman.
that we requested to put to a lineman.
I would also just add to this conversation, Phil and I have been talking about adding linemen for a couple of years now, and one of the things that they said that they wanted to do going forward was basically outsource certain things that need to be done, especially in new construction. So that's going to reduce the impact on the number of employees needed.
So is outsourcing a more economical way to do it, or
Yeah,
why?
hiring contractors, like, for instance, we have 2 on our tree trimming crew. One of them got hurt the other day, and he's restricted. He can't actually do anything at all. And so trees are growing, and we can't trim trees. And so we're going to outsource the contractors to help us get our trees trimmed. And also, when you do a lot of our infrastructure on our underground work, overhead lines, right now we're having our poles inspected. And so if we find a lot of poles that need to be replaced quickly, well, then we'll probably try to outsource that along, trying to keep up with our other road growth. And so we can bring contractors in. They don't take holidays or vacations. They just get the job done. And so we're trying to keep up that way.
that was some of part of our meetings when we were in budget talking to, he would rather use that money for contract because he can get more done again because he doesn't have some of the issues of being office, he is a hire to do it. So again, we sit down with every staff trying to figure out who the needs are. And with community development, it's just they're growing. The planning, the amount of building permits and everything that's coming in, you're just trying to fill those holes. I've talked to several board members in this room how they want more inspection and then how they want this more. You can't do it without people.
As your tree trimmers, are they also linemen?
No, they have their own job title. They're not.
They're just tree trimmers, okay.
Madam Mayor, I'm getting tired myself, and we're losing one. I don't want to stop anybody who had a very specific question, but can we start this again next time? Move we adjourn?
When's our next meeting
If somebody's got
scheduled?
something to talk about, I'll withdraw that.
When's our next meeting scheduled? I will be gone Wednesday to the next Monday.
I will state
Just
that I
forward.
believe we need to return to a policy that used to be instituted quite some time ago, that the board members were polled as to when their schedules all worked. Several different dates were given, And that way, I cannot stress enough, I think every board member has to be at these budget meetings. And I am not in favor of having this voted on October 1. I'll just put it right out there. I am against that 1,000%. There is absolutely no reason that this budget has to be approved on that first October meeting. The reason that I've been told by Alan doesn't hold water. It used to be approved later in the month or even the 1st of November. And so I think that we need to have these meetings when every board member can make it. And we do not need to be cramming them all in the month of September.
I would like to say that I do not want to be the reason these meetings are held up, because not only, yes, my nephew passed away last week. I have another nephew that's 8 years old that has been given a 2% chance of living, and I just can't commit to being here. I mean, not that I don't care about our city. I've proved that I care about my city, but sometimes you have to miss. And I think I have good excuses, but I don't want to be the reason things get held up, because I can watch the meetings and I can ask the questions. So I don't want it held up for me.
And that's very understanding. I mean, you've had a lot going on the last couple of months. And board and directors, with all due respect, with everything going on in everybody's lives, it's hard to get all 7 of you in a meeting. Barbara has sent out a lot of invites. And again, just because it says October 1st, that's our goal. If it moves to November, it moves to November.
But there's been no polling for these meetings.
Sir.
There's
last
been
year-
pollings on other meetings, but not on these meetings. And so I would suggest that we have a poll to see when, and give an option, give a variety of options that we can all make sure that everybody can make it. Because I even hated Ken not being able to make it tonight. And, you know, he said, don't hold it up for me, but Lisa's saying the same thing. I think it's that important. The only thing, I mean, everybody was talking, I didn't get to say anything. The only thing I was going to say on the COLA, 7% COLA, I wish we called it what it is, because when we list things as COLA, we have the citizens look up the COLA rate, and it's like, why are you giving double what the actual federal COLA is? So I'm just saying, if it's a different reason for it, let's actually name it what it is. That's
And
all I was
guess-
going to say.
And I'm not arguing at all, you know, I work for the pleasure of the board. But last year, several of you, almost all of you, said that was the best budget process you've ever been a part of. We started hitting the ground running on January 1, breaking dirt. We had things ordered in November and December. Employees knew what their raises were going to be up until December, decide what they were going to spend their money at Christmas, because they knew what was coming. Again, if the board decides they don't want to vote on this to December, that's fine.
I didn't say December.
Sir?
I never said December.
No, if it did take December, I understand, because you guys, you know, there's a lot of homework that you guys want to do and you want to get it right. I'm good with that.
I definitely want to ask all the questions, but I will admit that would you come up and repeat to me, we were talking about cars. You know, I hate how high they are. I hate that the officers don't have very many choices, but about the new vehicles we just got.
So part of the reason, even last year, that we are asking for the board to try to get the budget approved faster is because once we get that approval, like for instance, our cars, we ordered cars last October. I just got them last week. And if we hadn't have ordered them in October, I still wouldn't have them, probably wouldn't be even on the list to get them. And we would be behind the 8 ball in replacing our needed equipment. And
They
that
only
doesn't
make-
just go with cars, that goes with,
Don't make X number.
yeah, the manufacturers are only rolling out so many, and that's for the whole nation to knife fight for. Luckily Superior here in town does a good job of pre-ordering, and we got in on that list. And if we hadn't, we'd be searching the nation for cars and probably paying a significant amount more than we're already paying just to have cars and replace our cars. And it's not just cars, and there's manufacturer shortage all the way around and/or price changing. Our radios, for example, that are in that budget for our dispatch center have went up $80,000 since that. So we're probably not even going to be able to do that.
I just
That's just an
wanted to
example
point
of
out
how
that-
the pricing's changing.
It may seem like it's a
months.
hurry, but the hurry is because we literally are eliminated from the police car options.
Correct.
And I'm just saying, so they're not just trying to rush us, although it seems like it.
What I've been informed is that department heads need to be able to get their purchase orders in. And I just can tell you, in all the years of being involved in budgets, I have yet to ever see a board cut back on emergency vehicles, on amount of chemicals we have to buy, 5,000 screws for the maintenance department. I've never seen any of the numbers ever adjusted in a budget on the detail like that. It's been questions of like what's come up tonight, and there'll be more of that.
Correct.
But it's not on,
I think what this matters, I can't sign our name to an order without an approved budget. They won't take it because they're saying your board of directors hasn't allotted you the money for this expenditure, so we're not going to approve it. Now, when I have an approved budget by you, then I can allot that money, even though we're not going to pay for it till that product comes in or till after January. They won't even let us sign that contract with them or place the order without an approved budget, because you're talking just our cars alone are $300,000+.
So what Chief was saying, we can't even get on a waiting list, and that's what our problem is a bit. If the later we've waited in December, by the time I call and try to get cars, they don't have any more, and they said, hey, we may get some more in March.
we cannot stress enough that the budget is one of the very, very top responsibilities of an elected official. And we can't be rushed for the purpose of saying, we got to be able to get our orders in. That just, I've never heard it until last year. And we've got to have the time to ask the questions and make sure that we're comfortable with answering to the public.
And
So- Go
No,
ahead,
just-
Betsy.
last year was my first budget, and we went through it quickly. It was nice because it was fast, less time. But I also feel like I owe the citizens an apology because I didn't look through it thoroughly. I didn't really understand it. I did not do my due diligence, which is a huge part of my job. So this year, I do want to look at it all. I do want to understand it because I don't feel like I did right by the citizens. This is their money that I'm spending. So that's all.
Okay, so having those comments, then go ahead.
So in my hearing, with Lisa being out next week, I think everyone can be here before the board meeting. Do we not want to have the meeting if all 7 cannot be here?
I can be here on Tuesday. I will not be here on
Next Tuesday?
Thursday.
Yeah, we don't have anything on Thursday. I'm sorry, next, I thought, I'm thinking this Thursday, Miss Lisa, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
That's on me, the
I'll
following
be
Thursday.
here at the board meeting.
If we need
And
to
then
cancel
we'll
Board
be
that.
meeting
here
is the
after the board meeting.
17th. Is there another scheduled meeting this week for budget?
Nothing this
This
week.
week, next
So
week.
before the next board meeting?
The next board meeting
And
at
then the
4
next one's
o'clock, we'll be
Thursday.
discussing.
Lisa
And then the
just
next
said
one's
she
on
will.
Thursday.
And she would
Correct,
be
and
here.
it's the pleasure of the board, it's a very short agenda, probably the
Yeah.
shortest agenda I've ever seen.
Very short.
It's,
Yeah.
everything's on consent. If the board, after that's over, wants to go more into budget,
Convene, yeah.
Well, we can do that. We can.
I'm all good, and again, I don't want to.
If everybody's here and it's real short, we could easily reconvene and get back into it.
So if it starts at 4 and the board meeting starts at 6:30, is the plan just to work straight through? Do we get a break? Do we get, I
We'll
like the
give you a short break.
logistics.
Absolutely. We'll
Like
have
a
a little
short break, I'll bring
break.
food in
Absolutely.
again, we can
Okay.
do that, something
And there'll be
quick.
dessert next time?
Sir?
Kit Kats.
Kit Kat bars.
And I, board, really, I want you to be thorough. I want you to ask questions. It doesn't, if it takes you 4 or 5 weeks, I get it. The earlier I start,
There you go.
the better process I have to get it done a little bit earlier.
Thanks for trying to be balanced with it.
That's
Okay,
it.
so
Going with after.
at 4 o'clock on Tuesday, the 17th, we will start then with our budget review, and at 6:30, we'll have our normal board meeting, and then if you all need to come back again, if that's your pleasure, we can do that.
Either after the board meeting or
And that's right.
another night.
That's right. So you can always set for another night, so.
And if we can't do
Alan?
it Thursday, the board just got to
Okay.
say we don't want to do it. I work for you, and that's what we'll do.
And I'll bring dessert.
Oh,
Gooey-
that sounds good, 'cause
gooey
your
butter
desserts are
cake,
good.
David?
I was kidding.
He's ignoring me. Shocking. Gooey butter cake for dessert?
Yeah, we'll take that.
Move we
Okay.
adjourn?
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We are adjourned.
Nay.